Test, 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 test. 1, 2, 3. Is that better? Can everybody hear me? Thanks, Bob.
How's your aunt? You ready to go? Okay.
Welcome everyone to the 151st Annual Meeting of Hisakamuna Congregation and Schools. Thank you for everybody to come this evening. And we're going to start with the Devar Torah from Rabbi Wexler.
Good evening, everyone. The predominant image in the Parsha that we read this week is that of the menorah, arguably one of the most famous images and icons in our tradition. And I learned something new about it this week in preparing the Parsha from the Kabbalist Isaac Luria, although interestingly not a mystical explanation, very much rooted in the real world. He roots his comment in the notion that the only requirement for the candle in the middle, the light in the middle, is that it be larger, that it stand out from the others, that it be higher. He says that there are often many pillars for us in Jewish life, other subjects that are important and are crucial to who we are as Jews and as human beings. He even goes so far as to mention science and math and literature. But he says above all is the light of Torah, that as important as it is to have multiple modes of expression, multiple ways to live in this world, it is most important that there be something that abides above all, that there be one value that stands above all else. And the menorah reminds us that that value should be Torah, that everything should be rooted in tradition. That is not necessarily the reason that our founders chose the Chanukiah as part of the symbol of our congregation, but as we look upon it, we can remember the many ways that we express our Judaism here at Chizuk Emunah, and that way which is dominant over all. Thank you.
Would you all please rise and join me in the singing of the national anthems? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh Lord, Balev Benima, Nefesh Yehudi Homia, Ulefate Mizrach Kadima, Ain Letzion Sophia. Oh, Lovna Tigvateinu, Hatigva bat shnot alpayim, Liotam chofshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. Liotam chofshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim.
It's so hard not to say Shabbat Shalom, good morning. Stories. You might have noticed that I've told quite a number of Chizuk Emunah stories over the past 2 years. In fact, at every opportunity, I've shared a story from Chizuk's legendary 150-year history. Every time I've spoken at Shabbat services, High Holy Day services, every board meeting, every executive committee meeting, you name it. And you might ask, why? Because through stories, we experience rich emotion and nostalgia. Stories create connections with others, past and present, across generations. Stories show us what we have in common with those who came before and with each other. And they give us a sense of feeling at home, a sense of place. In Hebrew, makom. From the beginning, actually, at my installation 2 years ago, I said that I hope we would endeavor to build on that feeling of Chizuk as home, as family, as comfort, as a source of spirituality and meaning. We are a very large, diverse congregation with so many moving parts, and we have worked hard to synchronize those elements and to preserve and build community, a community that feels like our Makom. You know how many of us always seem to gravitate toward that same seat in the sanctuary? You sit with your friends and family in that one seat. That's our Makom, the place where it feels just right. For many years, I've had the privilege of being part of a team effort with a determined, intentional, and strategic focus. We explored our community needs and we methodically reshaped our clergy and professional team. An intensive, thorough search process brought us Josh Gruenberg, our senior rabbi who centers his rabbinate on developing relationships. A similar process resulted in our energetic and soulful Chazan, Randy Herman. Over the last 2 years, we have added key professionals to our outstanding senior staff, including Congregational Life and Engagement Director Carly Schwartz, Development Director Sarah Jacobs, and our tireless new Executive Director, David Schimmel. We have carefully built on our strengths. By definition, that means we have focused on Jewish education. I repeat it every time I have the chance, that our Hizuk Emunah schools are Hizuk Emunah's crown jewels. Education is our lane. Krieger Schechter Day School, Rosenblum Religious School, Goldsmith Preschool, and the Stolman Adult Education Center have thrived as a result of determined effort. Illustrating our attention to excellence, Krieger Schechter undertook a thorough self-examination and crafted a comprehensive strategic plan that, among so many other things, integrates our precious Jewish day school with our synagogue and all of the other schools so that all are elevated. With regard to our strong Hizuk tradition of lay leadership and governance, we reviewed and revamped our lay committees, a definite continuing work in progress. Our Board of Trustees worked together to define how we can better engender a sense of home, and our board also engaged in serious discussions on defining and tackling our synagogue and school priorities. In an era where legacy institutions are often losing luster, we have been unwavering in our commitment to providing relevance in synagogue life. If we are not relevant, we will disappear. During these past 2 years, we have devoted serious attention to social action and tikkun olam. We proudly proclaimed our Jewish values on racial and social justice on our front lawn, and we undertook a deep dive into critical social issues with ongoing programming, discussion groups, and learning sessions. I want to acknowledge former President Andy Miller, who has been absolutely devoted to this effort through the Social Justice Committee that he leads. We have enjoyed each other's company in new social affinity groups and have taken pride in extensive Gimilut Hasadim and Chesed efforts. It's my alarm, I have to wake up. Of particular note, we have welcomed not one, but 2 Afghan refugee families. Thank you to Margie Simon and so many others for an unbelievable, impactful effort of love and tikkun olam. We have proclaimed our environmental sustainability values with our solar installation, EV chargers, and our community garden. How symbolic that our Ner Tamid, the internal light on our bima, is now powered by the eternal light of the sun. We have celebrated together with our outdoor festivals, Yeda food trucks, and the Kona ice treats. We have innovated spiritually with a variety of different types of religious services, from our engaging twice-a-day minyanim to our traditional and alternative Shabbat morning and holiday services to our varied musical Kabbalat Shabbat services. Who would have ever pictured us dancing in the front entrance loop, singing melodies ranging from Carla Bach's Mizmor LaDavid to Bob Marley Reggae Vishamru? All of these efforts are designed to be compelling, inclusive, and relevant, to make us feel a sense of home and place at Hizuk Emunah. So I've touched on many of our experiences over the past years, but what haven't I mentioned? Well, the P word, of course. Okay, I'll say it. Pandemic, COVID. Oh my God, we've done all this and so much more together through one of the most difficult and challenging periods in our history. I may not have shared a lot of history today, but be assured this chapter in our history will be talked about when we celebrate our 175th or 200th anniversaries. How did we go about creating a sense of home at Chizuk when we were actually stuck in our own homes. How? We did it by recognizing that the Chiswick community is not just our beautiful building and campus. If we will it, our Makom is wherever we are. The Torah talks about not putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. All of us, our clergy, our teachers, our professional staff, our lay leadership, and our congregants opened their eyes to the possibilities at hand, and we did not stumble over COVID as much as we took it as a challenge to be better, to be flexible, resourceful, and better all around. We weren't blind, and we didn't stumble. Thank you to our team of medical expert volunteers who helped us pivot with the twists and the surges of the pandemic. It meant we could do the hard work of community building. If it meant calling every single congregant to check on them, or having a parade of cars snake through the parking lot so we could greet each other on the high holidays and hand out machzorim, or blowing the shofar from the top of a hook and ladder fire truck, we did it. And we all grew together from the experience. Shifting to the personal, I'm not sure how I actually ended up being president of our amazing congregation. Honestly, it was never even close to being a personal goal. I was happy that our daughter Shira was by far the best known Pomerantz for moving the needle every holidays with her voice. I've always been happy to be part of the team and express my opinions. The problem is I seem to express those opinions a lot. And at a certain point, I believe you can't opine without putting in the time. So I joined committees and task forces, and before I knew it, we built a playground together, picked a new rabbi, and I ended up president. So being president has been an incredible learning experience, for sure. What have I learned, and what can I pass on? Well, first, the most common comment I get, at least once a week, usually right after services, is it must be so difficult to deal with so many complaints. So you want to know the truth? Complaints? Not so much. The positivity, enthusiasm, and support for what we've been doing has far outweighed the critiques. And I've learned that when there's a disagreement, acknowledging the issue, and when appropriate, inviting partnership in addressing the problem has been very productive. I could give you plenty of examples. But when a solution is not available, we can't agree, listening and assuring people that their concerns and issues have been fully heard by leadership has been the charm. People ultimately want to feel heard in their home, and the details usually will work themselves out. A second important lesson for me has been that the best way to accomplish anything, to approach any priority or challenge, is to utilize the resources around you. And Chiswick Emunah is synonymous with outstanding human resources. Our signature characteristic is our passionate, dedicated, and knowledgeable community. Having the right people at the right time in the right place to get things done has been critical to every successful project I have seen or been a part of in my time at Chiswick. Again, I could cite example after example, but instead, this lesson learned about our community's shared gifts gives me the opportunity to accomplish what I really wanted to do here tonight. I want to give thanks. So, I am overwhelmingly grateful to all of you who have stepped up in so many ways to move our community forward and to make our Chiswick community our home. I don't even know where to start, so I will start with my wife, Leslie. If you ever sensed a social worky theme to anything I've done, you know where it came from. Leslie, thanks for putting up with all the pressure and distraction of this all-encompassing project of Chiswick leadership, and now we can relax. Thank you for your support and your sage, experienced advice. And since my mom is here, as she always is in person or by stream, I'd like to thank her. In particular, thanks, Mom, for giving Rabbi Gruenberg fodder to make fun of me for always having a tie on and for wearing a suit so I don't look so short. Thanks, Mom, for dragging me to shul as a kid every week and for all the support and love. It's paid off. Thank you to all those in leadership who came before. I've had invaluable counsel from so many of the previous presidents, so many of them who are here tonight. And I really appreciate your mentorship and your perspective. It's clear that you don't stop caring when your terms end. I'd like to single out Sandy Moffett, who partnered with me in every way during her term when I was her vice president and has continued to keep me on my toes. Sandy, I hope you can tell, I was taking notes the whole time. Thank you on all your successes. Thank you. Thank you to every member of the Board of Trustees. In particular, I want to thank each member of the Executive Committee. You have dedicated endless time and effort, not only tending to your own portfolios, but coming to meeting after meeting after meeting, and also serving as a cabinet, taking my calls for advice on a regular basis and providing an invaluable sounding board. You will not find a more dedicated group of people. So thank you, Josh Wolf, Bob Halleck, Rena Lapidus, Sarah Manikin, Jeff Snyder, Johnny Lewis, Beth Perlman, and Jenny Gomlio. I am in awe of every one of you. Of this group, I want to sprinkle some extra gratitude on Bob Halleck, our president-elect. We have partnered together now for years, and I appreciate all the love, energy, and creativity you bring to the table for Hizikamuna. I wish you all the best as I pass the baton to you. Here's your Hizik purple baton. Thank you, Rabbi Grunberg, for being my partner and for being my rabbi. You have elevated our synagogue and school community in so many ways, and with your ability to engender relationships at all levels. Of all the things that you do, I am most grateful that each child in our schools knows you, and you know each of them by name. This bodes well for the value of synagogue community being part of their lives forever. I look forward to our personal journey continuing indefinitely. In a similar vein, I am grateful to you, Rabbi Wexler, and to Cantor Herman, Rabbi Dr. Shuali, Headmaster Rabbi Schwartz, Michelle Gold, and Rabbi Seltzer. Thank you to Lee Sherman, who piloted us across COVID, and to David Schimmel, who has now joined our Hizik family and has definitely hit the ground running. I mentioned our new senior staff members earlier, but I want to thank the others on our senior staff, including Leslie Britton and Michelle Brill. Thank you to all the rest of our professional staff, office staff, catering, cemetery, maintenance, and security staff, all of whom deserve to be thanked by name. But someone will start playing the Oscar time limit music if I do. I can't name you all here, but we all know that you are not nameless to our congregants. Thank you all for your kindnesses to me and your important work for the synagogue. A special thanks to our teachers. Thank you to our teachers. Thank you to our parents and students for being understanding and nimble as we constantly adjusted to the pandemic. Thank you to Rabbi Dr. Paul Schneider, who has taught us all the power of stories, inspiring me in my Hizik Story project. And thank you to Jan Schein, our archivist, whose book on 3 Pillars has been the source of most of the stories that I've told. And Flash, the new updated edition, is coming soon. It is really hard to fathom the breadth and depth of this community. We all value every one of you and what you bring. In practice, I get a sense of this every time I pull into the parking lot. It's typically a beehive of activity, and when I see all the staff and the students and the parents and the congregants, I have to catch my breath. It literally gives me pause as I enter the lot and feel the weight of responsibility and the privilege that has been granted to me to contribute. So to all of you, thank you. Thank you, Toda Rabbah, for all you do to create and elevate this community. Thank you for making our Hizik community so meaningful in our lives. So, with reverence to our past and excitement for a bright Hizik future, I feel the Shekianu prayer of gratitude coming on. So please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehekianu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Thank you.
person. But thankfully, we have technology so that we can be with you right now. The honor to be included in the gallery of distinguished Chizuk Emunah clergy is humbling and meaningful beyond words. I have a connection to each emeritus colleague. Rabbi Goldman had previously served as the rabbi at the temple. My father served as Chazan. Rabbi Zayman served with my father at the same shul in Providence that Rabbi Goldman served. He co-officiated at my bar mitzvah and Janice and my wedding. He was my teacher, friend, and mentor throughout my life. Chazan Salkov became a revered, close friend and mentor. For my first 2 years, we would meet weekly at his residence discussing music and chazanut. Chazan Weisgall's music was a huge part of my early repertoire, and his son Hugo presided over my accreditation recital at the Jewish Theological Seminary. I am indebted to all of the Chizuk Emunah clergy and staff, past and present, Steve Pomerantz, Jane Kahn, and my beloved congregation for making this portrait a reality. Steve and Jane's brilliant choice of Barbara Kiwak was enabled through a divine intervention. I also want to thank my doctors and nurses in the ICU at Sinai Hospital, and most of all, my wife, Janice, and our children for keeping me alive to live to share in this sacred moment. If you'll join with me in saying Amen, even though it's through technology. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehachiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
You're very welcome.
Shir Ladonai, Shir Chadash. The truth is, we have always connected to God through the music of our prayer. For many years, Chazan Perlman inspired and led our community through his soulful voice and ability to create meaningful relationships. Our communal tradition, when we have a long-serving clergy, is to put up a portrait. Why? Why do we do this? Not every synagogue puts up a portrait of their past clergy, their esteemed clergy, in their hallway. So why do we do this? I've been thinking about this in preparation for tonight, and I came up with 4 reasons. Closeness. We should be very proud as a Chizuk Emunah community that we are a community who desperately and deeply loves her clergy, who wants to be a part of their clergy's life, who wants to be with their clergy, who wants to learn from their clergy. It's a testament to all of you. Honor. We are a community who honors our clergy. We are a community that recognizes the effect and the impact that our clergy has on its various members. Memory. We are a community that remembers their clergy. In fact, in my office, every time I make a decision that's a little bit wrong, the light blinks, and I know Rabbi Zayman Zichronah Livracha is saying to me, not that decision. Then I change it, and the light goes back on permanently, which is how I know that's exactly what it is. But we are a community that remembers our clergy and the impact they have had. And finally, story. We are a community that tells our story 151 years now young. The clergy are central actors in that story, but the truth is, we do not make up the meat of the story. That is left to all of you. Ideally, our hallway would not have big, huge hanging pictures of your clergy, but little pictures of each and every one of you. That's what makes our community. That's what lifts up our clergy, and that's why we're here today to celebrate so much together. So we honor Cantor Chazan Manny Perlman with this portrait this evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Beth Perlman, treasurer of Chizuk Emunah. I get the really fun part to talk about numbers. But I want to tell you, it was maybe a little over a week ago, I was saying the Shehecheyanu on Mount Scopus. So I just got back yesterday from Israel, and I want to thank you all for helping me get over my jet lag, because yesterday at this time I was asleep. So firstly, I'd like to thank everybody for doing their part to make sure that this shul is a viable congregation and thriving community. I'd also like to give special thanks to Leslie Britton, who you don't see often, the CFO, and she works tirelessly to make sure that, you know, our accounting's right, our cash flow is good, and so you never see her, she's in the background, but she is a rock star. Let me start with the current fiscal year, which ends in June. And when we did the budget, and I presented this to you last year, we looked like we were going to be close to a balanced budget. Well, it didn't really happen that way. It looks like this year we're going to come in at about a $200,000 deficit. Now, when we did the budget for the current fiscal year, it was very difficult. We didn't know how to estimate catering and different programming because it was not a normal year. So the biggest contributors to our deficit are about $85,000 deficit in our annual campaign. Catering, which was something that we had a little challenge with because we didn't know if we were going to be catering events or not, was about $35,000 deficit. And then we had a deficit with membership dues due to resignation. So those were the biggest contributors. And considering all things from a year of operating in COVID, we're not unhappy with where we are. So let's look forward to the next fiscal year, which starts in July. And I'd like to thank everybody that worked on the budget committee. And I'd also like to thank the committee chairs from different committees like House and membership that come to our meetings and make sure that there's ownership in the numbers that are being presented. We are presenting a balanced budget. Oh, it's off by $1,000, but that's like a rounding error. Actually, it's off, yeah, $1,000. You all got your statements, and I hope you noticed that there was no dues increase. And I'd also like to say that we were able to give increases to the staff. We did this budget trying to get back to normal, so we had to look at things like, what did 2019 look like? Or what things went well in 2021? And so, again, a budget is our best guess at the time, given the current situation. So we hope to be operating with a balanced budget for the next fiscal year. But as you know, we adjust accordingly, and the staff does a great job in managing to that. So if you have any questions, you will not find me tonight. I will be in bed, but you are more than welcome to call me. So Lila Tov, everybody.
So we have a large board of, it changes a little bit based on all the mathematics of the board and what our bylaws say, but we do have turnover every year, and we have graduated, we'll call it graduated, several of our board members. And I just want to call all of them up. And I'm told their names are here. Yes, so I'm going to name all the names, and then everybody come up, and they're going to get, do we have the? It's underneath, you told me that. Every one of them is going to get a tzedakah box, and in honor of the budget deficit, you can fill this up and send it to Chizuk Emunah. So, I'm going to call all the names, and then please come up and I'll give these to you. So, Robert Max, Jenny Gamliel, Josh Wolf, Robert Wolf, no relation, Dr. Larry Amsterdam, Jeff Snyder, and Alyssa Densky. Thank you for your service. Thank you for coming to the board meetings. Thank you for tangling with all the issues that we've tangled with. Thank you for the eternal light. Okay, so, there we go. Here we go. All right, Josh. Where's Larry? There you are. Again, we cannot thank you, all of you, enough.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and see everyone. Again, on behalf of me, I thank all of the outgoing board members for all of their hard work. I certainly know how much time, energy, and effort you put in all the time to what you do. This is hard work, but all really important, good work that comes from the heart, and most especially to my friend Steve Pomerantz for all of his hard work and everything that he's done over the past 2 years and the last probably over 10 years serving on the board. Just an amazing job, and my thanks for all that you're done, and I appreciate your friendship. And just so you know, it's a constant email and text dialogue between me and Steve. I might not have been around here so much the last 2 years, but trust me. Anyhow, so congratulations. Exactly. All right. So I am, on behalf of the nominating committee, which spent some great deal of work thinking about our proposed slate for this year, I am really thrilled to present our slate of officers and board members for the 2022 to 2023 year. Our executive committee, President Bob Halleck, Vice President for Member Engagement, Rich Reven, Vice President for Development, Harel Turkel, Vice President for Education, Sarah Manikin, Vice President for Religious Life, Joel Solden, Vice President for Administration, Sam Moskowitz, Treasurer, Beth Perlman, Secretary, Rena Lapidus, and KSDS Board Chair, Andrea Lieber. Re-nominated trustees for an additional term, Rachel Abrams, Jeffrey Blavitt, Jamie Cohen, and Amanda Levine. Continuing terms, Jacob Hodis, Jane Kahn, Melissa Langer, Aaron Max, and Barbara Scott. And our newest members nominated for terms beginning this year in 2022 to 2023, Steve Burrs, Johnny Lewis, Mayor Silverstein. So I congratulate all of them on their nominations. Please help me. Please join me in welcoming Rabbi Gruenberg up here for the installation of the officers and our board members.
Thank you, Sandy. So I just want to begin with a moment of gratitude. Steve really did a beautiful job of thanking everybody who is involved on a day-to-day basis in making this engine run. And when I say making this engine run, doing the amazing things that happen here in our community every single day. So I am incredibly grateful to be a part of this community. I'm incredibly grateful to come to work here every morning. Or let me say I'm incredibly grateful to come to work here most mornings. Some mornings I could do without probably, but I am incredibly grateful to come to work here every morning. And I am incredibly grateful, along with my senior staff and all of the staff, to represent this incredible community. I want to show my appreciation tonight, both to our outgoing board members and my appreciation to our incoming board members. But I'm going to do it first by way of teaching a little bit of Torah, something that I was reminded of this week, and a piece that I've been able to teach in a couple different places. In an essay called Kol Dodi Dofek, Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, the Rav, the great modern Orthodox scholar, writes about this week's Torah portion. There's two ways in which people become a group, a community, a society. The first is when they face a common enemy. They band together for mutual protection. Like all animals who come together in herds or flocks to defend themselves against predators, we do this for survival. The Bible calls this group a machaneh, a camp, a defensive formation. There is another quite different form of association. People can come together because they share a vision, an aspiration, a set of ideals. This is the meaning of an edah, of a congregation, of a community. Edah is related to the word witness. Witness, edot, are the commands that testify to Jewish belief, as Shabbat testifies to creation, Passover to God's involvement in history, and so on. An edah, community, is not a defensive formation, but a creative one. People join together what not any one of them could do by themselves. A true community, a true congregation, is a society built around a shared vision, a vision for the common good. Soloveitchik goes further and explains that these aren't just two types of groups, but in a profound sense, two different ways of existing and relating to the world. A camp is brought into being by what happens from the outside. A congregation comes into existence by internal decision. The former is reactive, the latter is proactive. The first is a response to what has happened in the past. The second represents the very thing that we are trying to achieve in the future. Camps exist in the animal kingdom. Communities, congregations are uniquely human. They flow from our ability to speak, to think, to communicate with one another, to envision a different society from any that has existed in the past, and to understand that the only way that we can bring it about is by collaborating, by joining with one another. That's what we do here at Chizuk Emunah Congregation and Schools. We join together, we collaborate, we do things that individually none of us could possibly accomplish, and yet together, it almost seems like we accomplish the impossible on a daily basis. It's not an easy thing to lead by any stretch of the imagination. And yet I can guarantee you that when most presidents get to the end of a long 2-year term, they are understandably counting the minutes until they can accept the mantle of immediate past president. I don't think that's the case with Steve. I think legitimately, don't do this, Bob. If Bob went up to Steve this morning and said, I need you to do another year, Steve would not have gone over it with Leslie and would have said yes. Leslie would have let him hear about it a little bit later on when he let her know that he had been asked, and he said yes. But I illustrate that to you, share that with you, not because there's unfinished business, Steve. Quite the contrary. I share that with you because that just gives you a little bit of a window into Steve's great love for this community. Steve, if you are guilty of anything, it's loving this community with every fiber of your being, sharing that with every person you come across via text, email, middle of the night, 1,000, 2,000 words, limitless amounts of words and ways to describe how much you love this community. So, Steve, our rabbis teach us, Imein Kemach ein Torah, Imein Torah ein Kemach. If we don't have Torah, we can't have sustenance, but without sustenance, we can't have Torah. The literal meaning, I think, that the rabbis are trying to explain to us is you can't just simply learn Torah and not live in the world. And you certainly can't do the opposite either. As a Jewish community, we are tasked with balancing this identity not only for ourselves as individuals, but modeling it for others. As the synagogue president, you are the chief officer in modeling this balance and in helping others to do the same. Bluntly, how do we want our values represented in what we do in the synagogue community? Steve, you love this community. And because of it, you have helped us live this balance, challenging us to create a community that is rooted in Jewish values and connected and involved in the world. And the incredible thing is you've done it largely during a pandemic, perhaps the most difficult time to do it, and you've been amazing. Your service to our community is only outweighed by your friendship to each and every one of us individually. On a personal note, Steve, more than anything, I'll miss the radiology humor. In every list of doctors and the best humor, radiologists always come first. No, on a real note, Steve, more than anything, I will miss your friendship. I will miss all the time we spent together talking about Jewish life, talking about family, and occasionally Jewish life again. And I honestly cannot think of a better way to close out our 2-year partnership as president and as rabbi than standing together just across the hall under the chuppah as your daughter Miriam wed her bashert Yandi, who, may I say, is here this evening. Points for Yandi. While I know that this is just a change in the journey and the end of nothing, I am incredibly grateful for all you have done for our community, Steve, and for me personally. And I officially thank you for your service and install you as our immediate past president. Thank you. We have a gift for you. Much like it would be if it was in my house, I don't know what the gift is.
It is Chizik Emunah.
Oh, and your pen.
Thank you.
Hayom katsar v'hamelacha meruba. The rabbis teach us the day is short and the work is great. Our next president has never learned this Mishnah. How do I know this? Because the first thing that Bob Halleck and I ever did together was create my interview weekend that we had here in February of 2018. I actually know the exact date on which that weekend started, because that Sunday was February 4th, 2018, the day the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So by association, sorry. Bob, as I reflect back on that preparation, I remember the two of us looking at each other or talking to each other a couple of times and saying, does it seem like too much? And as if somebody was filming us laughing, two people who want to accomplish so much so quickly, we looked at each other and we said, no, it doesn't seem like too much. It seems doable. In hindsight, maybe it was a little bit too much. But I don't think so. The truth is, Bob, in that process, I came to witness and see your incredible dedication, your incredible willingness to work, and your incredible ability to think outside of the box. When we were planning Shabbat dinner, and we said, what table will the rabbi sit at? And we came up with the idea, maybe he'll sit at 6 different tables in 60 minutes. Thankfully, nobody sensible was there to say, that's ridiculous, Bob and Josh. Why would you do that? But it turned out to be one of the best portions of the evening. And it tells me, Bob, that I'm looking forward to dreaming together over the next 2 years. I love the fact that no matter what I come to you with, your first response is never no, but always a quizzical look like you're giving me now. Can we do this? I imagine Charlie and Amanda react to that look a little bit differently than I do as the senior rabbi, but they're here, which means that they must like that look as well. Bob, you've put together a great group of leaders for next year. And I know, coupled with your leadership, that our synagogue, our community, is in great hands going forward in the future. We read in the book of Deuteronomy, Ma Adonai Elohecha sho'el mi'imach ki im lira et Adonai Elohecha. What does God require of us? To love God, to serve God and our community with all of our heart and with all of our soul. Bob, it seems like a simple task, and yet within that simplicity, it reminds us that our community is rooted in our Jewish traditions, but also rooted within each and every one of us. Lead with your heart and lead with your soul. It's worked for you up until this point, and it will carry and challenge our community to reach and conquer new heights. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless the leaders of our congregation with wisdom, vigor, and understanding. Sustain them with your spirit and the spirit of leadership. Grant that all of their endeavors, all of our endeavors, be a blessing and a source of blessing, and let us all say, Amen. It is in my distinct pleasure as the senior rabbi of Chizuk Emunah Congregation in Schools to install our entire new slate of officers and to introduce for the first time our synagogue president, Bob Halleck.
I get a gift already? Thank you, Rabbi. By the way, the hell weekend that you went through, it turns out that it's actually good practice, because being a senior rabbi, as you all know, is not an easy job. So we thought if he just even lasted, if he lived through it, he would be a great rabbi, and it turned out to be the case. What a great evening for Chizuk Emunah. Thank you, Rabbi Wexler, for your Devar Torah. Thank you, Rabbi Grunberg, for your remarks. Beth Perlman, for your hard work as budget chair and treasurer. Sandy Moffett, for being chair of the nominating committee and also for being great president yourself. Leslie Pomerantz and Cantor Herman for your beautiful music. We got one more from you. And of course, to Steve, but more for you in a little while. And thank you to everyone for being here tonight. I am honored to become president of Chizuk Emunah, and will try my best to live up to the trust that you've placed in me. I'm proud and happy to be joined by my family tonight, my wife Fritzi, my daughter Amanda, my son Charlie, both of whom grew up at Chizuk Emunah and went to Krieger Schechter, my father-in-law Jonathan Kolker, my son Steve, who's watching on live stream with his wife Vanessa and 3 kids out in LA, and my 2 sisters, Diane and Joan, who's watching on live stream in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I love you all, and thank you so much for your support all these years and encouragement. Now I want to say a few words about Steve Pomerantz. It's really hard to say just a few words, because I think the rabbi summed up Steve very well. Steve has been a visionary and really a bolt of energy at Chizuk, constantly striving to make things better, always saying, how can we do this better? No matter how good it is, well, next time we could tweak this or that. He does not accept the status quo as a given, and for years, he has literally dragged me into projects and roles, and I happily went and joined him because I knew that when he was involved, he was all in. Chizuk Emunah and our schools are a better place because of you, Steve, and you have a lot to be proud of. We are all deeply grateful to you, and I value your friendship. Thank you again. There is, of course, the very old joke about when there are 2 Jews, there are 3 opinions. Funny jokes often contain a kernel of truth, and this is one of those because asking questions and having differences of opinion are part of our cultural Jewish DNA. In fact, when we educate our children or adults at Chizuk Emunah, We encourage everyone to ask everything and ask why. Why did God ask Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac? It seems like a horribly cruel thing to ask a father to do. Why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? We wonder that all the time. And we even go so far as to encourage people to ask, why do we believe in God? Or is there a God? There's no scientific proof for it. We don't throw people out of the room when they ask that question. We engage with them. And this asking why is Judaism's strength. So tonight, I want to answer a why question that is often asked of me lately. Why in the world would you want to be president of a synagogue? Yes, this is usually followed by a laugh, such as we heard here tonight. There's no doubt that being president of a synagogue can at times be challenging. And this is why I want to give you serious answers to the questions of why, to give you an insight as to why I am standing here today. My answers involve my past, our present, and our future. My first answer has to do with my past. My personal story. I grew up in Hibbing, Minnesota, an iron mining town in remote and very cold northern Minnesota. We were remote, being 200 miles north of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hibbing had 17,000 residents, a lot of Scandinavians, and only about 150 Jews in total. I was one of 3 Jews in my high school class of 400. My Halak grandparents emigrated from Lithuania in the 1890s, and in 1907, 115 years ago, my grandfather, Charlie Halak, not the Charlie Halak that's sitting here today, in 1907, my grandfather became the first president of our Hibbing synagogue, Agudath Achim, and my grandmother, Etta, was its first president of what was then called Women's Auxiliary. My mom and dad also were heavily involved in leadership roles. I remember my dad getting called at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on many days. He would get called from Herman or David or Abe, asking him to come to open the synagogue, because he had some keys to the synagogue, open the synagogue at 6 p.m. so that they could get together for somebody's yard site. So when you have such a small community, getting a minyan is not easy. And it stuck with me that we all had to work together and support each other, and I bring that with me today. For me, our tiny synagogue was the only place in our town, besides my own home, where I felt truly at ease to be Jewish. While I didn't experience any discrimination growing up as a child, I knew that we were different and we were viewed as such. This experience in my childhood, while sometimes isolating, actually had a positive effect on me because it made me sensitive to being an outsider who doesn't quite fit. The truth is, however, that most of us, at one time or another, feel like we don't fit. So my first answer to the question of why is that I want to ensure that everyone here feels as if they fit, that they belong in Hizek, regardless of religious practice, level of Hebrew competency, family makeup, race, sexual orientation, social status, or hometown. And I'm just really curious. I have no idea what's going to happen here, but show of hands for all of you who did not grow up at Hizek Emunah. Look at this. So when they say Baltimore is this inbred community, and we also are lucky to have, 4 generations, Lee? 5 generations. We are lucky to have that as well, but I mean, most of us did not grow up here. So, my second answer to the why president question reflects our present. Today, in my opinion, synagogues are an indispensable part of Jewish life. The word synagogue comes from the Greek and means to bring together. Where else can we learn together, pray together, provide support to those in need, celebrate simchas like b'nai mitzvahs, baby namings, weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, socialize together, and, yes, mourn together at funerals and shivas? Synagogues are indeed anchors in our Jewish world by bringing us together. In Baltimore, we are blessed to have many, many fine synagogues, but Hizek Emunah is extraordinary. We are a 21st century community buzzing with activity in our services, schools, programs, and community events. We are blessed to have dynamic congregants, like all of you, and parents with an enviable large number of young families, not all the synagogues have this, who bring new life and future leadership to our community every single year. We have an A team, I mean an A team, clergy, school heads, and staff. And if that's not enough, just look at the list of board members and officers that you voted in today. Wow. We are incredibly lucky that these folks have given their time with minimal arm twisting and energy to our community. So our present is very strong. Now the future, that's my third answer. The Hebrew words chizuk emunah means strengthening the faith. And I'm struck by the word strengthening because it implies movement forward rather than being static. After 150 years, we didn't get to where we are today by standing still, and we don't intend to do that now. We will continue to build upon the work of those who've gone before us, and as they did, we will continue to evolve and think outside the box, someone else said that, as the world changes and as our needs change. I'm so excited and energized to be a part of creating Chizuk Emunah's promising future. There are a whole host of projects that we are already working on to move us forward, including, but not limited to, building greater connections among our schools and synagogue, creating new spiritual opportunities, expanding our Gimlut Hasidim volunteer programs to help those in need, expanding our Chesed programs to help those within our community, and there are those that we are still trying to identify because people often don't ask for help. We are also exploring finding new revenue streams, stay tuned, and from an organizational standpoint, building strategic plans, setting priorities, and measuring our success accordingly. So with our current strengths and our future possibilities, who wouldn't want to be president of Chizuk Emunah? Don't raise your hands. While you may or may not want to be president, each of us has a part to play. We need your ideas, your participation, your financial support, and your ambassadorship. Let me be specific. 1, we need your ideas. We're not going to satisfy everyone all the time, believe me, but we will listen. If you have ideas, please let any board member, clergy, or staff know. And you can always email me at, and I'm not sure it's working yet, but maybe soon, president@chizukemunah.org. Melissa says yes. 2, or it can go to Steve and he can handle the complaints. I like that, just kidding. 2, we need your participation. Whether it's coming to services, taking a class, or volunteering, jump in and participate. I guarantee you that you'll feel more connected when you participate, so read our emails and show up. 3, we need your financial support. Our due structure and tuition fund just 2/3 of our costs. Thank you to everyone who contributes so generously to our annual appeal and for special projects along the way. And watch for our upcoming 150th endowment campaign this fall. Finally, we need all of you to be Chizuk Emunah ambassadors by spreading the word to your friends in person or on social media. Bring them to services, to our playground, to our summer outdoor concerts, to our classes. Talk us up. We have a great story to tell, and we welcome everyone to join us. So, in closing, I hope you can feel my optimism and enthusiasm. And I hope that you feel that you have a voice at Chizuk Emunah and that Chizuk Emunah is your home. I look forward to working with each of you, and I thank you again for this responsibility and great honor. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now, thank you. And now for some music. Thank you. Thank you.
מעמידנו שומרנו לחיים ולשלום ולשלום השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום אדוני אלוהינו
Thank you, guys. That was beautiful. I've been asked that immediately after this meeting that all of the past presidents that are here come up to the stage for photographs. And as my first official act, this meeting is adjourned. And please join us for dessert. Thank you.